Hey, welcome to the F Divorce Podcast. Jack here. You know, you'd think I would have been able to record more of these during the lockdown, but it turns out everyone else was on lockdown too. So there were like 500 people here all the time, and I don't live with what you would call a quiet bunch. In fact, I'm recording this around 10:30 at night, and just a room over, they just started the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So I guess if you hear those, how many notes is it? Bum, 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 bum. 5 notes. I'm not getting abducted by aliens. They're just watching a movie really loud in the middle of the night for no reason. Early on during this pandemic situation, I saw a lot of posts on social media saying stuff like, if you don't come out of this quarantine with a new skill, your side hustle started, or more knowledge, you never lacked time, you lacked discipline. And that really ticked me off. Now, if you did any of those things, that's fantastic. But many people were, and still are, struggling to put food on their table, homeschool their children, and just generally keep their family safe, healthy, housed, and fed. For many, the hustle was and is not about thriving, reinventing oneself, or rebranding. No matter what social media wants you to believe, for a lot of people, it's about surviving. And posts with that kind of mentality show a complete lack of empathy and general awareness of what's going on within our very own communities. I think the COVID situation has brought out the best of us in many ways. But because nature abhors a vacuum, or maybe because, as some would argue, humans may just be terrible in general, it has also brought out the worst. Whether we like it or not, we are in this together. We are a communal species. The only way we will get through this is if we work together, have a little empathy, and lift one another up. If you don't feel like you've thrived during this time because you were forced into survival mode, please do not feel bad about it. That's like the one thing I don't want anybody to take away from this, and I'm doing it in the introduction because that's how important it is. Do not feel bad about it. You have enough stuff to worry about. Ignore the creeps on social media that are telling you otherwise. You are doing everything you can, and that is more than enough. Survive. That's what matters right now. I live in Ohio, and we were under lockdown for the better part of 3 months. So if I were to do what a lot of podcast hosts do and update you on my life during the intro would be very short. For 3 months, I got up, worked, ate, and went back to bed. The only people I saw in person were my family and the delivery drivers through the door. Thank God for contactless delivery. For 3 months, I felt like my life was the loading screen of a video game. I think it was Zelda Ocarina of Time for the N64 that did a thing where you could like run around and jump and swing your sword and stuff while you waited for the level to load. But you were in this like hazy, cloudy, gray void. I felt like that then. Just living in a void, waiting for the world to load. And you know, I had an eerily similar feeling towards the end of my marriage and during the early stages of my separation. Looking back, it was almost like a dreamlike, zombie-like existence. Just floating in the water aimlessly, waiting for the tide to take me wherever it pleased. You know, I really hope that N64 reference worked for this crowd. I'd really hate to hear that some of you are too young to have played it. As you probably saw in the title, today's episode will be on COVID. That's right. We're going to sit down and we're going to solve all of the problems. We're going to knock this out right here, right now. Well, right after the break. So, the coronavirus, COVID-19. I try not to curse a lot on the show, but I feel like this one is warranted. And if there are kids in the car or anything like that, just shut me off or have them do the ear muffins thing for about 30 seconds. What the fuck? You know, that felt good. I'm going to say it again. And you should try it with me. It's okay. You can say it. You're probably not listening to this in public. And if you are in public, you're supposed to be wearing a mask, so no one will be able to, hear you anyway. And even if you are out in public and you're not wearing a mask, or if they can hear you anyway, regardless, due to everything going on, they're probably just going to nod in agreement. So you're going to do it with me here, okay? Are you ready? Big breath. What the fuck? That was beautiful. Do you feel better? I think it's important to acknowledge the craziness of the situation we have found ourselves in. I mean, we're all walking around in masks looking like Mortal Kombat characters. Now, I know those games have been made continuously for like 30 years, so I'm pretty sure everyone will get that reference. Besides like 30 seconds ago, when was the last time you changed your mindset from participant to observer and really looked around? That's a skill that took me way too long to develop, and I wish I had developed it a lot sooner than I did. I wish I had been able to take a step back and observe what was really going on in my marriage. And not just take a step back, but also acknowledge how wrong the whole thing was. I'm better at the first part of that now. I can observe. But sometimes I still have trouble acknowledging not the situation, but my emotions in the situation. I really have to concentrate on asking myself, how does this make me feel? My go-to reaction is to comment on the absurdity of it all with humor. I don't want to say sarcasm, because true sarcasm implies that the target of the sarcasm is stupid. But it's something along those lines. It's kind of a defense mechanism for me. If I'm not laughing, I'm crying, The problem with that was that I needed to cry. While there were some funny aspects in that bigger existential way of my entire life falling apart, the whole thing wasn't a laughing matter. Divorce is a violent and destructive act. It's not funny. And while finding humor in it helped me in the very, very short term, I think it definitely delayed my healing process. Do you have issues going from participant to observer? How well do you observe yourself? Do you spend time examining your thoughts and emotions, especially during tough times? Do you reflect on them? I think part of the reason I have problems properly emoting sometimes is because during my marriage, I felt like I couldn't emote at all. I felt trapped. Like my emotions weren't relevant at best, and at worst would be used against me. So I swallowed them down, one bottle of wild turkey at a time, and let them build up. And like with wild turkey, what goes in must come out. Do you know what happens when you stop yourself from peeing? If for some reason you were able to do that, and people have done it before, everything will fill up until your bladder bursts and kills you. My point is that our emotions have to go somewhere. They have to be felt, and denying them only prolongs the inevitable. If we keep swallowing our feelings instead of emoting in a healthy way, our emotional bladders will burst. I know a lot of people will push their stuff away because someone always has it worse. I'm guilty of this too. It's that, there are kids starving in Africa right now thing. And while that's true, I'm still going to puke whenever I eat your tuna noodle casserole, Mom. Obviously, a kid, my mom's tuna noodle casserole is just as good as everyone else's. In fact, it's better. She does an amazing job of it. It's just unfortunate that the dish itself tastes like Satan's vomit. I just realized I could have used lungs and breathing in air in that metaphor a few minutes ago instead of urine and bladder bursting. Too late now. Feel the feels. It's important, and it doesn't make you a bad person. Yes, it is good to put everything into perspective, but you can't help the kids starving in Africa when you can't even save yourself from starvation. We all have our own crosses to bear. It's okay to complain about yours from time to time. As I mentioned earlier, I live in Ohio, and we were under almost total lockdown for the better part of 3 months. At first, we did a pretty good job of #flattening the curve. I was pretty proud. Having said that, being locked up in the house 24/7 was not exactly fun. I was talking to a buddy of mine about this, and we were laughing about how we're homebodies, so we probably wouldn't have gone out much anyway. But having that option taken away, even when it's for the good of the community, stunk. It felt like house arrest. Now, we were allowed to go out to get essentials and exercise, but even then, that felt like your daily hour in the yard. But what really ticked me off were the people who flat out ignored the rules. It's like they thought they didn't apply to them. Or apparently, even this is even better, that they knew better than the smartest minds in the world. Now, if people want to be idiots and endanger themselves, that's their choice. I'm not going to judge them for that. But a lot of these idiots and their choices have endangered me and my family, and for pretty selfish reasons. They aren't going out to get groceries or go to work. No, they're going out to get drunk with their friends or travel interstate without self-quarantining, and not for any particular reason. They just want to. They don't care. And clearly they don't or can't think of anyone but themselves. So while I've done everything I'm supposed to do and played by the rules, even though it stunk, I could still get hurt. Can you relate? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you were at least trying to do the right thing and follow the rules, only to have others around you essentially throw those rules back in your face? It's infuriating. It's like they legitimately don't care how their actions affect others. They're going to do what they're going to do regardless of the outcome. And it's one thing when strangers do it. But when it's somebody that you love, I don't know about you, but it still makes me angry. But unlike with strangers, when it comes from someone I love, it hurts a hell of a lot on top of the anger. And it makes me feel small. Like I'm not even there. Like I don't matter. And because certain people can't or refuse to do what's right, we find ourselves where we are now. Divorced. Oh, and they're also shutting everything back down again because we opened things up, not because the numbers look good. I mean, let's be honest, it's because people were tired of it. We as a country actually tried the whole ignore it until it goes away thing because we got tired of not being able to shop in stores or drink with our friends. Then, because we couldn't follow simple freaking rules because of our civil liberties, a ton of people died. And so soon enough, we're probably going to go back to being trapped. And you know what? Over the years, I've had a lot of time to reflect on feeling and actually being trapped. It's crazy how similar literally being trapped in my house felt to feeling trapped in my marriage. Did you feel that way too? I don't know about you, but I had all but given up on the idea of happiness. I'd accepted that my life wasn't going to end up where I wanted it to be for me or for us as a couple. I felt hopeless and helpless, like my destiny, however big or small it would have been, had been taken from me. I was no longer in control of it. I was caged. Do you know what happens when you put a wild animal in captivity? Generally, it either dies from depression or it goes nuts and kills everything it can. Honestly, I think I tried it both ways. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that being married is like being in captivity. I'm just saying that being in a bad marriage is. I'm also not blaming her for everything. It takes two people to start a marriage, and under most circumstances, it also takes two to end it. But it was during this, quote, captivity that I learned to wear a mask. I wore the mask of someone who was happy, of someone who lived. And I thought it was a brilliant mask. But the thing about those kind of masks, unlike the cloth ones we're supposed to wear now, is that they don't work. They look phony. And anyone who bothers to pay attention will see right through them. They're also incredibly hard to maintain. I mean, perfection is impossible under good circumstances. Why is it that we find ourselves trying to push out that image during terrible times, expecting it to look good and be able to pull it off? The mask of perfection is hiding fear. Fear that we will be found out. Fear that people will see that we don't have it all together. Fear that they will see that our lives aren't actually amazing. Trying to keep up that mask adds so much stress, which, especially while going through hard times like the end of a marriage, is not needed. Take off the mask. Everyone sees through it anyway. And imperfection is beauty. Be you. You're more than enough and you are beautiful. The only mask I want to see you wear is a cloth one. A little phrase I mentioned a while ago, #flattening the curve, has become pretty common lately. And another phrase I've heard a lot of variations of recently is the new normal. I remember the videos coming out of Italy during the early days of the lockdown. You'd see these people on the balconies of their apartments, which looked more like prisons with their utilitarian concrete structure, and they'd join each other in song. Sometimes it'd be a happy song, sometimes sad, but it was always beautiful. You'd think it would be crazy how quickly they were able to adapt and make the best of a terrible situation, but it's really not. If you look back through history, you'll quickly see that human beings have an extraordinary capacity to adapt to the situation, however grim it may be. The United Kingdom held its ground during the infamous Blitz of World War II for like 8 months. There have been countless wars, plagues, empires have collapsed. Things you would think would mark the end of the world didn't. Why? Because we are a stubborn species who can not only adapt incredibly quickly in order to survive, but we can turn that into thriving. During the darkest hours, we have this weird way of creating the most beautiful things. That's just human nature. If this is to be our new normal, then we'll deal with it. Because that's who we are. We'll continue to survive, adapt, and turn that into thriving. And it will be beautiful. And it doesn't matter if I'm referring to COVID or divorce, because it's true in both cases. You, yes, you, wearing those headphones, I want you to hear this. You are stronger than you think. You are tougher than you imagine. You are worthy. You are brave. You are beautiful. And you aren't alone. Now, I'm not saying it won't suck. But you're going to wake up one day and realize that that's behind you. It won't be sudden. You won't have that kind of big revelation that they have in the movies. You won't have anything like that. You'll wake up one day and realize it's not as bad. And I know this because I've been there. I've been there when I lost my father at 14. I've been there when just recently I lost my little protector, my dog. And I was there when I lost my marriage. I know what it's like. And I'm not saying it's not going to be terrible. I'm not saying the journey is going to be easy. But I am saying that someday you will see yourself on the other side. If you put in the work, feel the feels, I promise you, the sun will come out. Remember, getting divorced sucks. Being divorced doesn't. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and wait it out. Time will heal this wound, too. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Also, keep up to date with all the good stuff going on at FDivorce on Instagram. That's F_divorce. We have a whole thriving community of people that are just all in this together, and it is beautiful. It's honestly beautiful how many people have kind of become a part of this and joined me on this journey. Also available on Facebook and Twitter. So, be good. We'll see you next time. Cheers.